Hello everyone, I'm Rachel and I welcome you all to Executive Corner Expert Talks. Today I'm with Dave Rouse. Dave is the CEO at CarbonClick. Now, carbon emissions are chewing up our climate and businesses can play a significant role in helping to curb these emissions. Dave is here to help us understand that subject better. Here at Kalkine, we bring you industry leaders, successful business owners, market and equity advocates, all under one roof to help you discover the insights of the stock market and help you understand how you can create multiple passive income streams. So hello Dave, great to have you on the show today. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Nice to be here.
Good to speak with you today. So I'd love to hear more about CarbonClick and where the idea first came from.
Yeah, so the idea first came from my two co-founders working at an international airline. They built the carbon offset program and saw opportunities to do it better. They looked at why only a few % of people were actually offsetting, and they looked at other considerations like how do they build trust and transparency that people need into it, and beyond that, how do they create a lot more impact out of the flow of funds that people donate when they're offsetting. How do we make sure that that carries not just carbon but also biodiversity, social impact, benefits, as well as making sure that the accounting stacks up so that it's genuinely additional and genuinely permanent?
Well, we know that carbon emissions are killing our environment and that it's essential that we do work to try and curb them. In your opinion, how can companies offset carbon?
Yeah, so that's really easy. I mean, any company can measure its carbon footprint, or they can even estimate their carbon footprint. Offsetting, you can purchase offsets from anywhere around the world, from any number of registries or carbon brokers. That part is easy. The hard part is making sure that it's not just an accounting exercise. And if you're going to take action, that it's genuinely going to make an impact. When it does, you also have a genuine story to tell. People are a little bit, a bit tired of just hearing we're carbon neutral or carbon zero, and customers are asking, what does that really mean? So if you've got a good story behind those offsets about this is the difference that these projects make by us supporting them, that's really where consumer behaviour is driving businesses to do better now.
Excellent. So how can companies align their economic and social goals with sustainability goals?
Yeah, so the whole triple bottom line reporting is big now. A lot of large organisations are already making leaps in this direction. Aligning, and this goes back to my previous answer as well, regarding making sure that when you're doing something for carbon, it's not just an accounting exercise, but it creates a social exercise. This is just a case of holistically looking at what you're trying to achieve as a company and reporting on that, just like you would financially. So what is our social impact, not just internally with the business and its employees, but with the products that we're supporting, with the suppliers that we're supporting? Are we really looking at where our products come from and what goes on there? So it's a case of let's think at a high level how our company impacts the lives of people, from our suppliers through to our end users, and what can we do better overall, and what do we need to understand overall. It just starts with asking those questions.
So do you believe a carbon neutral life is feasible, and how is that possible?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. A carbon neutral life for an individual, we breathe out carbon dioxide. We need the trees on the flip side and the algae in the ocean to be healthy, to absorb our carbon dioxide and return it back to oxygen so that we can survive. That's kind of a fundamental carbon neutrality. If you've got the right amount of trees to human ratio, then we'll all survive fine. And then you come into food crops that we need to eat and all of that kind of thing. This is going back to real basics. In a modern day lifestyle, a lot of us live in cities and built up areas, so we need to look at where we can offset our impact through the products that we're purchasing and the companies that we're supporting, but also through potentially offsetting our own life, where we can support. I can buy a chunk of forest in the Amazon or buy carbon credits from that to offset my life, so that I know I'm having a positive impact on the planet, not a negative one.
Absolutely. And CarbonClick is partnering with the world's leading enterprises to help drive climate action to new heights. And you recently have a partnership with Etihad. What lies ahead with these partnerships?
Yeah, so more of the same. I mean, the Etihad is a great example of an organisation that's really leading the charge in aviation. So they're big into sustainable aviation fuel, low emission flights, and one of the pioneers behind technology that will drive us towards electrification or hydrogen, so that we can travel and connect with our loved ones without having such a negative footprint on the environment. Now, working more with them, we've built our product into their loyalty system now, so you can use your air points to offset your flying. And we're looking for the leaders in other industries as well, whether that be e-commerce, whether that be hotels. We're looking to partner with those organisations that want to do things better than just calling it carbon neutral or net zero, but actually having the impactful stories that they can tell. The benefit is that those organisations like Etihad create much better customer loyalty as a result, because their customers thank them for being the pioneers, and that creates real stickiness. That's my mentality as well. But also partnerships, like we're working closely at the moment with SAP on building this into some of the software that large organisations use, so that they have the opportunity to click the little green button and offset some of the choices that they're making as they're purchasing, which is, to me, it's all about how can we do this so simple, single click, big impact, but with all of the audit traceability that anybody could ever want, to follow this right through to the carbon offset projects transparently.
Well, absolutely. I mean, all these moves can have a huge impact on our environment. So lastly, Dave, how do you feel this year has turned out for climate action?
It's been a mixed bag, really. COVID has taught us that if we're taking our lives and our livelihoods seriously, we can completely change the way that we operate. Why we haven't treated climate the same in a climate emergency is probably a lack of foresight. COVID is here now, it's killing lives now, whereas if we don't tackle climate change soon, we'll have similar deaths happening in 10 to 20 years directly as a result of climate change. And it's like a nuclear chain reaction or domino effect. What we do now has a big impact in the years ahead. And if what we don't do now may become irreversible in the trajectory that we're on. So from that sense, there's been a bit of an awakening. The IPCC report that came out in July, that solved a lot of the challenges that we've had, a lot of the technicalities that some leaders of the world even were hanging on to, saying, the Trumps of the world saying, hey, climate change is a hoax because there's a few bits of evidence that don't stack up. The latest IPCC report really worked hard on addressing any of those areas that were a little uncertain. For example, there was an increase in CO2 emissions over the 1980s, but there wasn't quite the same corresponding increase in global warming, and that was not explained very well in previous reports, whereas now they've said, well, hang on, ozone, which was a big problem there, that's why in my hometown in New Zealand, a lot of us have skin cancer as a result. The CFCs that are released have a net cooling effect, although they burn up the ozone layer. So we didn't actually see the carbon emissions creating that same temperature change over that period of time. All of that's been uncovered and scientifically proven, so that you've got, beyond any doubt from the world's top scientists, you've got agreements on all of this. And that was the big thing that paved the way for COP26 this year. So at COP26, there was nobody questioning and all of the work was put into how do we get on with taking action now. Not as much action as we would have liked. There were still some countries that just didn't play ball or played silly tricks at the 11th hour. But it's been a good year as far as bringing certainty to most of the world and uncovering who are the players that are working against this, as well as the social challenges that we need to address. For example, the developing nations, we're saying they don't have access to cheap coal now or can't use it because we're all going to suffer. Whereas the developed world, hey, we've created the damage in getting our economies up to where it is. So why is it fair for us to have done that, but we're not going to allow the developing nations to go and do that? Well, there's a lot of social inequalities there that need to be addressed and focused on. And they've been exposed this year, which is good as well. So long story short, we've made some progress, but we need to really put our foot down over 2022 if we want to see any tangible results from what we now know.
Yes, well, we absolutely need everybody to be on board. It's such an essential space to be working in. Thank you so much for your time today, Dave.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And watch this space for more. Till then, stay apprised and invest wise with Kalkine.